And now, here's Casey Ingram.
All right, folks, welcome back to the second half hour. And we just had Senator Gail Harrell on. She's Republican candidate for Senate District 31 here in Florida. And I have her Democratic opponent in the studio right now. So we get a chance to hear both of them in 1 hour. And I appreciate you coming in. Aaron Hawkins was supposed to be here last week. We had to reschedule because of Milton. But Aaron, welcome to the show. I'm excited to get to know you a little bit better and hear about your platform and why you're running for the Senate.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on. I couldn't be more grateful. As a newcomer to politics, it's always hard to get your voice out there and make sure people have an opportunity to really hear what you have to say. So I really appreciate this.
Want to tell people a little bit more? You can look up more information about Aaron at hawkins4flsenate.com. hawkins4flsenate.com. Aaron's a young professional born and raised in Stuart, Florida. His roots run deep here on the Treasure Coast. Aaron's family history in Stuart goes back over 100 years and even longer on the Treasure Coast. Born to a mother who worked as a healthcare administrator with Martin Memorial Health Services for 30 years and a father who worked in sanitation for Martin County before his retirement, Aaron understands the plight of working class families. Aaron is an alumni of Florida State University, where he earned a bachelor's in economics with a focus in international trade, finance, and economic development. He has an additional degree as part of the Bachelor of International Affairs with a focus in geography. He also possesses a master's in international affairs focused on urban and regional development. He is primarily trained as a policy analyst, but has a professional background in data management, real estate, small business consulting, and organizational management. In 2020, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, he moved back home and has been an active member of the community ever since. He's worked with the Martin County Black Heritage Initiative, NAACP, and Stuart Main Street while being the vice president of the Martin County Democratic Club, and has recently become president of Treasure Coast Young Democrats to increase political engagement of young locals. Thank you for that. I think young locals are the next generation in politics. It's so important to get people involved. So very important that you're involved in that. And recently you were also appointed to the City of Stuart Community Redevelopment Board as a volunteer board member. So a lot of things going on in Stuart right now, so that's an interesting time to be part of the CRB there.
Absolutely.
It is.
We all were thrown for a loop, but hey,
yeah,
we're here for it.
That's right. That's what it's about. During his time working with numerous nonprofit organizations while running his own business post-graduation, he began to understand the most limiting factors for the average citizen to become engaged in civic and political activities and organizations were information and organizational expertise. And this is what's prompted him to find a new nonprofit designed to aggregate and organize political information in an easy and digestible manner called Project Polis. Some of his most pressing issues are voting rights and feasibility, more robust environmental regulation, the quality of public education, and addressing the affordable crisis. So that gives us an overall background, Aaron, but tell us, why are you running for Florida Senate?
Well, to be honest with you, like it says in the bio, I was kind of forced to move back home. I had an internship set up in Panama where I had the opportunity to work with the UN, but COVID happened in 2020, so air travel wasn't a big thing.
Right.
So that got shut down. So I ended up moving back home, and I got right into the workforce. And in doing so, I tried to get out on my own and started to rent. And I got taken advantage of by a bad landlord. They continued to try to increase our prices. They continued to take advantage of us because we were young, and they even broke their own contract on some occasions. And we didn't have the money to take them to court. And even if we did, the courts lean very heavily in the landlord's favor most of the time here. So that is kind of what opened me up to understanding this whole affordability crisis that we're living under here. And it hits people that are 40 and under, it hits them especially hard. And that's kind of prompted me to get involved on the local level to work on affordability issues here, to try to bring some affordable housing to the county. And that moved me towards, next thing you know, I'm working with the party. Next thing you know, I'm looking for candidates to run. And I decided to just step up and do it myself when I couldn't find anyone that was interested in running at the state level. So that's why I jumped into this race.
Well, congratulations, Aaron. Civic involvement is so important, and I always have the deepest respect for people that put yourself out there and run in these races because you just never know what you're going to face on the campaign trail. So it takes a lot of stamina to go out there and say you're going to run and then follow up. And you've been out there shaking hands. And matter of fact, there's different forums that you go to, and you have one this evening that folks can listen to and attend if you want to talk about that with the League of Women Voters.
That's right. The League of Women Voters and the NAACP are putting on a forum. It's going to be at IRC Chastain campus here in Stewart. I believe the address is 2400 Southeast Salerno.
I think you're right.
So come out. It's going to start at 5:30. We're going to have 3 phases of it, and it should be an excellent opportunity to get to know your candidates and ask all the hard-hitting questions you'd like to.
This may be about the only opportunity you'll have the candidates in one room to do this with, folks, so definitely a good event to attend. Aaron, let's talk about affordable housing more because that is a huge, huge issue. And you're a very young man, and so it's very, I think your perspective is incredibly important right now, the challenges that are facing people that don't own a home. And you're trying to find a place to live. You want to own a home, but the expenses are, the home prices are incredibly high. The rents have went incredibly high. So what kind of ideas do you have to address the issue?
Well, I'd like to start with kind of understanding what's already been done and where we should kind of move to. So there was a bill passed that they claim was trying to affect affordable housing on the local level. But there was a lot of preemptive laws within that bill that stops local government from having control over the development.
Are you talking about the Live Local Act?
I'm talking about the Live Local Act, but there's also some other ones that were connected to that that affected this. But my main issue with this bill is that the way that the state of Florida defines affordable housing is that it is 30% of whatever the median adjusted income is for the area. The median adjusted income, for example, for Martin County is about $77,000. You take that number, you take 30%, you split it up by 12, and you get close to about $2,000 a month for rent. That's not affordable for like half the people that live here, So there's a problem with the way we define affordable housing. It needs to be redefined within Florida law. And then there's also an issue of once we build the affordable housing, how can we make sure that landlords do not take advantage of, say, a growing market? For example, 2020 is a good example. Like I told my story about it. When rents are going up and you have places that are subpar, that maybe haven't been updated since 20, 30 years, but they're trying to charge the same price as if they were a brand new location with the same amenities. It's not an accurate representation of the market, and it's also it's another form of price gouging, in my opinion, because you're offering the same price for an inferior product, you see? So how do we get on top of those things, and then how do we provide more housing, and how do we provide more housing that local communities are willing to actually bring in? Because if you talk to a lot of people out here, there's a big uproar about the apartments that have been built. But most people, it's not the apartments necessarily, but it's the fact that these apartments aren't solving the actual crisis that we're under. They're just building apartments and renting them out, and most of the people renting them are new people coming in. It's not the people here that have been trying to figure out a place to live for the last 5 years, So my idea, what I would like to implement, is to introduce more programs that promote nonprofit housing in the state of Florida. Nonprofit housing, not only does it provide a different marketplace for workforce housing for people that would usually take up workforce housing, but it also provides a built-in regulation of the market so that people that have, say, an inferior rental compared to new rentals can't price gouge because now they have to compete with nonprofit housing. And there's evidence out there actually where the more nonprofit housing that's introduced in the market, for example, 10% increase in nonprofit housing within a market decreases the rents in the market by about 5%. So this is my solution, and it's a long-term solution to try to build in some kind of resilience against runaway prices in the rental market, because we're always going to have people like me who are in my position who are in early parts of their career, aren't necessarily ready to buy a home, but would like to live on their own and would like to rent and save up, be able to save up money in order to buy a home later. So this is a huge deal, a huge issue for, like I said, people under 40. And it's something that I think that our legislators really aren't speaking to right now. So we need people in there that are going to fight for us and are going to fight for our kids, honestly, in the future.
And it is a function of supply and demand for sure. I mean, I think that, some of the city of Stewart commissioners had approved a lot of apartments hoping that it would bring rents down. And instead, COVID happened and everybody and their brother moved here to Florida.
Right.
And rents only went up. And like
Right.
you said, even the Class C, the apartments that aren't new and shiny anymore, were charging premium prices. So it is a big issue. I think Commissioner Harold Jenkins at the county level was looking at a nonprofit such as what you're speaking. So they're trying to address that. So certainly there's going to be, I think, some support for sure somehow to get affordable housing for the locals that live here and always have, right?
Right.
What are the most important issues you believe are facing Martin County, and how would you prioritize them in legislature?
So I would say some of the most important issues are insurance, housing insurance in particular, especially. They've just recently passed some reforms. I'd like to say that this could have been prevented if we had legislators that were on top of this, say 2 or 3 years ago. If you've talked to people on the ground, they kind of already saw this insurance crisis on the horizon. But they passed some tort reform recently that is actually only going to make it harder for people to make claims. And the issue is that they took a hatchet to a problem that required a scalpel. They were trying to focus on fraud, but instead they went after litigation. And that's going to blow back in our face when, for example, the people that just suffered from Milton, when they go and try to get a claim and say an insurance company decides they don't want to pay because they don't think that this person is actually covered under whatever damage might have happened to their home. Now that person has to come out of pocket and chase down the insurance company in order to get paid rather than the person that would do the fixing. It's called an assignment of benefits. So, the roofer would fix your house, and then the roofer would be responsible for going to get the insurance claim from the insurance company. But now that is not allowed anymore. So that puts the onus on you as the consumer to, go and get the claim. And that takes extra time, extra work, and sometimes extra money that people don't have. So this is the issue with our legislature, is that they created this insurance crisis. This is what happens when you fully capitulate to the wills of insurance companies. And I'm not saying there isn't obviously a good balance that needs to be created so that there's not as much fraud in the market as there was, because don't get me wrong, there was a fraud problem in the state of Florida, 100%, and there still is to a bit. But there's a balance here, and I think we've just teetered way too far to the other side of it.
It is a huge issue, and I just spoke with Senator Harrell about it too, and she had just brought up they have a bill of homeowners' rights for insurance now that they're trying to pass to make sure people know, they need help, so they're not calling that wrong person,
Right.
having the wrong adjuster come out when it should be a certain person associated with their insurance company and whatnot. So it's a big issue out there. And one thing that we talked about as well, and get your thoughts on it, was regionalizing insurance rates rather than it's a state of Florida. All rates are based on state of Florida only. We spread the risk out by regions or maybe countrywide. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that it's going to take multiple solutions. It's not going to be it's not a one-trick pony. So it's going to take the federal level to get involved to try to nationalize some of this risk, because I don't know if you guys have talked about it, but these hurricanes, the flooding happening in the southeast of the United States in general, it's only going to get worse. all of these natural disasters and events are only going to become more intense as time goes on. So now is the time for us to get some kind of federal legislation that takes some of the onus off of insurance companies to have to provide support under serious natural disasters. And I think that would help lower. I read a research paper on this, though, that if there was going to be some kind of national program like that, it would decrease insurance rates by about 30% over the country. So I think that that is definitely a way we're going to have to go, but also making sure that we have a diversified insurance here in the state of Florida, where if you are an insurance provider in the state of Florida and you don't, maybe you provide car insurance, but you don't provide housing insurance, you should be required to provide housing insurance. We need to diversify that to have more people in the market so that there's more competition. And I want to bring up two things also, two bills that were provided. Both of these bills were brought by Democrats, and both of them were killed in committee because they were brought by Democrats. And we have a slanted legislature right now, as you know, a supermajority amongst Republicans.
And that's a good question, how you overcome that as a Democrat.
Right. And I wanted to say that these two bills, one was going to provide a grant program, a temporary grant program, to allow people in the meantime, while the market is adjusting, to allow them to afford their housing mortgage, their car insurance, and their house insurance. And it was going to basically just be for the time while hoping that rates start to go down. And then another one was going to be it was going to establish an official insurance commission for the state of Florida, and it was going to make the job of insurance commissioner an elected position. So it used to be an elected position. It no longer is.
Oh.
Right now it's an appointed position by the governor. And the thing is that is the type of systemic change that we need with our insurance regulation down here in the state of Florida, where it gives more say-so. It gives more of a say for the citizens on who's going to be the person that's going to regulate and enforce insurance policy, public policy. So those are two bills that I would put my support behind, that were brought by Democrats and were killed because of the Republican legislature. And, I'm really running a race on, this is not about party politics for me. I know I just brought up party politics, but I brought that up to show that party politics is stopping us from helping Floridians. And this is not about party politics for me. This is about our community interest here versus special interests. And that's what I'm running on.
And that really, but you brought up a point, and it's a hard point to overcome, and that is the makeup of the legislature is so heavily Republican. It's hard to have a voice. So how would you ensure that you could bring Martin County, St. Lucie County, Northern Palm Beach County, your district's voice? How can you make sure that you're heard in Tallahassee?
Well, the thing is that I'm not amenable, I am amenable is what I mean to say, is that I've worked with people here locally, and what I've come to find is no matter what party you're a part of or what your political persuasion might be, as long as you are focused on the issues and getting things done, it's like they say, there's more than one way to skin a cat. There are options, even with the nonprofit thing I brought up earlier,
right,
the nonprofit
the affordable housing. Mm-hmm.
Right. There's different ways to do that. It doesn't have to be government funded. We can set up the right regulatory system to create a nonprofit market within the private sector. So I am open to ideas and to working with people and to making sure that we get things done, but I want to be clear that I'm open to getting things done for Floridians, not for the Democratic Party and not for the Republican Party, but for the people of Florida.
What steps do you take to address the recurring issue of our discharges, the algal blooms that are in the water, and to improve the quality of the Indian River Lagoon, St. Lucie River?
Right. So there's a lot of issues with that. It's a very complex issue, actually, and I'm not going to lie to anyone. A lot of people, they want you to come out and they want you to talk bad about sugar and go in on big sugar, but the truth of the matter is big sugar isn't the main cause of those algae blooms. They're not the main cause of why our rivers are the way they are. Uh, it really comes down to stormwater infrastructure and making sure that we're enforcing laws against things like trash that falls off the back of construction trucks, or nails and things of that nature, or people using certain types of lawn
Pesticides
care,
and herbicides.
right, lawn care amenities that they shouldn't be able to use. They shouldn't be using, or if they do use them, maybe we should tax those things in the state of Florida so that we can reinvest that money back into protecting our waterways. But for me, it really comes down to stormwater infrastructure, because what a lot of people don't realize is all of that stuff that's just in our streets or on our lawns or in our parking lots. When it rains and when we get heavy rain here, it all washes into the water, and that all washes into our rivers. That is a big cause of what's going on. And then also the septic tanks and the sewer systems, and making sure that we have more money appropriated here to convert the old septic tanks onto sewer. There was a study done about a year ago, actually now, where they looked at, it was FAU, they looked at the concentration of where the phosphorus was coming from in the river here. And what they found is that most of it, about 70%, was coming from fecal matter. So a lot of it is the sewer system and the septic tanks and some of these vessels out here that people are living on, where they are dumping their latrines into the river. So enforcing that and making sure that we are doing these conversion rates and improving the standards for septic tanks. And then also, when I know I've said stormwater infrastructure, and actually, to Senator Harrell's credit, she has done some work on stormwater infrastructure. My problem is that it's inadequate. We need tons more investment into stormwater infrastructure because, as we already said, storms, the rain, it's only going to get more intense. And we need to be prepared for 50 years down the line, not just the next 10. So that is a big part of my agenda, to make sure that our waterways stay clean here.
And just a side note about the boaters that are dumping in the river. Folks, in Martin County, we actually have a free service. It's MS Poop. She'll come out, and all you have to do is call the county, and they come out and offer that service for free to empty your tanks in the boat. So there's no reason for that. And yes, it does happen, but there's no reason for it to happen. What about trying to advocate for higher paying jobs in the community? Because part of the housing is you can't afford it. So that's kind of goes hand in hand. So how do you advocate for new businesses and create higher paying jobs and still keep our quality of life that we love here in Martin County?
All right, well, it's about growing the industries that are already here. So our marine industry, for one, the marine industry tends to offer jobs that are well paid, and I think that we need to look into how we can be more supportive of labor here in the state of Florida. We have an issue here where we have high costs, but we also have low wages compared to other places in the country that have as high of a cost. Florida just recently became the most expensive state to live in. And I think that we need to be more focused on allowing people to assert themselves, assert their own, what they would like from their employers. And I think that the best way to do that is to support labor, support unions, support people that are organizing on the ground to make that happen. Because that's where, the way I see it, labor unions, that is the market solution to our issues when it comes to wages. It shouldn't be the government stepping in and saying, here's the minimum wage, you have to pay this or not. Labor unions are the market solution to our wage issue, and it will allow them to be able to get higher wages and afford the living expenses here. So that's really where I stand on that.
Again, we're speaking with Aaron Hawkins. You can look up more information about Aaron at Hawkins for flsenate.com. gmail.com. Aaron, how will you work to ensure Martin County receives its fair share of state funding for road improvements and the infrastructure projects we were just talking about?
Well, I'm running on a community first platform. So, what that means is that I am heavily focused on making sure that I'm working with local leaders. I'm working with city, county, town councils, and making sure that I know exactly what their needs and priorities are, and I'm taking those needs and priorities to Tallahassee with me and making those the priority there. There are complaints out there that right now that does not seem to be the case. So I'm trying to fill that position and make sure people understand that when I go to Tallahassee, there's no other thing on my mind but making sure that the local organizations and local leaders have the resources necessary to lead effectively. So that is what I intend on. That's how I intend on running my office, and I'm going to take my cues from them. They're going to tell me what's needed, and I'm going to go to Tallahassee, and I'm going to use my skills as a negotiator and someone who knows how to work a room and talk to the right people to make sure that we get our appropriations here.
Aaron, our half hour is almost up. We have just about a minute and a half left, so I just want you to reach out to your potential voters. Again, thank you for running. You're running for Florida Senate, District 31, and why should people vote for you?
Well, I think that we are living in a time right now where it's time for new blood. Our politicians currently in the state legislature are running it as if it is 2005, and we need people up there that have new ideas, that have new drive to make sure that this state is a state for all people. And that is what I'm trying to be. I'm trying to be that person that can come in and provide a new perspective and new solutions, full solutions, long-term solutions to the issues that we face here in Florida, not half-baked ones. So I would humbly ask for your vote. And I just want to express my gratitude to the people out there that have already voted for me or have donated to my campaign and have supported me on my journey.
Folks, again, Aaron Hawkins, and don't forget tonight, League of Women Voters out at and NAACP out at the Wolf Technology Center at IRSC campus. Starts at 5:30. Important forum. It's going to have these Senator Harrell, Aaron, as well as many of the other candidates here in the area. Aaron, thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.